All right, that was a terrible transition, but in my own defense, I was also setting my watch right as I was getting ready to go live. I looked down. I'm like, damn, this one's just way off. I don't know what the hell happened. Kind of nervous. I don't have to tune this thing. This watch terrifies me. Some watches should just never be touched, and this is one of them. So, hope everyone's having a good morning. Hey, Stone Lux, good to see you. Glad that you're here, man. Welcome to the boat. Again, good to see you. I know I've welcomed you before, but it's good to see you. Canavax Recording Library, good to see you. Balake, always a pleasure. Scoob, Rick. Hey, Joe. What's going on, man? So before we get rolling, a couple of things. Number one, my best friend is done. He's been on the road for 3 weeks. Man, I'm not laughing at him. I'm laughing with him, and that's the truth. M. Hunt, good to see you, brother. It's good to see you, man. It's always cool to see M. Hunt. Boltneck, good to see you. So Alan Ballantyne has been in. He got shipped a good distance away from home. He's had to live on the road, and he went out for like a 6-day training or some outlandish piece of crap like that, and they've just been stringing him along out there, and the guy's thank God, but it's almost over. He's gonna be heading home this weekend, and man, I feel for him. I really do. Alan's not just a dude that's been on the lifeboat forever. He's my go-to. That's my ace deuce. If Alan and I lived in the same country, they would be in trouble because we'd be tearing it up. I really get along well with Alan Ballantyne. He's absolutely one of the. He's my best friend alive currently, but without a doubt, one of my 2 or 3 best friends that I've ever met. He's just such a stand-up cat. I really wish we lived on the same side of the world. So the the other thing I wanted to say was I got a beautiful letter from someone who's relatively new to the boat and whose life has just been touched so heinously by this entire rough ride we're going through with drugs in this country and the little that's being done about it. But Christine, we'll just call her Christine. But Christine, it is so nice to have you on the lifeboat, and I am so sorry for all of the loss. It's sometimes hard to wrap our brain around just how bad it's gotten. But God bless you, and we're glad that you found the lifeboat. We really are. And I know I speak on behalf of Heather when I say that as well. So hey, Charlie Murphy, good to see you. Snotface, good to see you. Charlie, hope everybody's doing well, man. We've been keeping your family in our thoughts and prayers, and so far so good, right? So we've been doing pretty well with that. So God bless. Glad you're here. So this one is going to sound like, geez, man, Tommy talks about this crap all the time. I guarantee I'm going to get that. And when I start, you're going to say the same thing. How many times have we been over this? Do not bail. Do not think you've heard this before, because the great majority of you haven't. If you've been on the boat long enough, there's nothing that I've I couldn't form a sentence that I haven't formed at one time or another. Seriously, have you ever gone back and just go to lives and start like going back, try to scroll to the beginning of them? Holy hell, we've done a lot of these meetings. But this is an important subject because we've been talking about stuff around the outside of this now for a hot minute, right? This is back to the brain stuff, but this is kind of different. We're going to talk about, we've been talking a lot lately about how the brain stores things in our memory, how the brain disseminates the stuff that comes in, and which things get more indelibly burned into our memory. And these are not questions that don't have really huge ramifications for all of us who are trying to turn their life around, stop doing drugs, just to change in any way. It doesn't even matter whether or not this is a drugs or alcohol thing. I hope that makes sense, because it doesn't. The way that anybody's mind, right? The king of the normies, someone that has never touched a substance in their entire life, has the exact same setup in the brain, and their life is being manipulated by the same memories and the same implanted stuff that we're talking about right now. The difference is that most people in the real world have coping mechanisms for how to deal with the things that come up, right? We do not. So our particular affliction sends us off into a different direction than most. But what's going on inside the gray matter is identical, right? When something really heavy duty happens, there is a part of our brain that takes that info in. This is not news to anybody, because we talk about this all the time, right? What I don't think we've broken down in probably a year or more is when this happens. So let's use as an example something that happens that's bad but isn't the end of the world, right? This isn't the loss of a family member. This isn't something that, on a scale of 1 to 10, when we do our thing, this ain't a 10, but it could be a 7. Let's say you get in a car wreck, right? You get in a car wreck on the way to work, and it doesn't, you're not killed, but it's a car wreck, and it scares the hell out of you, right? Well, what happens is when that event takes place, right, and you're going through a green light at an intersection, and somebody runs theirs, right, and at the last second you turn and you see that car, and you think, this is it. There's no chance in hell this car doesn't kill me. Like, it is about to T-bone you right dead square in the middle of your door. And that's the last thing you see as you close your eyes. Now, you're moving pretty quick. Thing really catches you probably around the trunk, almost the back bumper, but it spins you around a few times, and your head hits the B post, and it's traumatic. Like, this scares the crap out of you, right? And they had to come, and an ambulance was out there, and the whole shooting match. So that's a traumatic event, and it's going to imprint on your brain, and you're going to remember all of it. You're going to remember entering the intersection, and you're just, you're singing Blinded by the Light, and everything is groovy, and then bam, right? From the time that happens until the time that we're able to put it out of our mind and start getting back to normal life, right, is called the refractory period. So from the time that the crap hits the fan until we reboot, until we come back online and start going, oh man, when someone says, hey, heard about the accident. Yeah, that was rough. But it's behind you. It's not part of your day every day from this point on, right? You're not reliving the moment. You're not thinking about it constantly. It's not the topic of conversation. That refractory period is over and you've moved on. Okay. Now, how long should a refractory period be? Well, there's not really a scientific answer to that question at any level at all, because it varies so much from individual to individual and it varies from incident to incident, from memory to memory. Some things that may not seem massively traumatic to you are still super imprinted on the brain, right? Maybe it was something that was embarrassing. Your life was never in danger or anything like that, but you were really embarrassed. Somebody said something about you at a party, or, you heard of something that somebody said, and it stings. Same crap, right? This is a traumatic event. Now, it isn't a car wreck. You didn't get shot. You weren't in war. Nothing like that. It's nothing really like end of the world, but it's traumatic. And your brain views it as such. And you're going to be bummed out. During the refractory period, we're never happy, right? No one's ever walking around during the refractory period going, oh man, you should have seen this accident. This was incredible. Once endo, 3 times sideways, this was an accident. That's not usually how it goes down. Usually we're pretty depressed, right? There's fear, maybe a little anger, right? Depending on how this went down, like the jackass that ran into you in the back. Stone Lux is a great question right here. Do people sponsor here? Yes and no. We do it a little differently, but you know what? We don't do it differently at all. If you call it sponsor, it is the exact same thing. But here's what we do here. Because of the fact that the internet has made the world considerably different in terms of getting a hold of people. Getting a hold of people and doing things like that. We suggest you get 5 individuals, right? And the idea being, you find them at a place like this, or you find them at your local meeting, or you find it wherever sober people congregate, right? It's kind of cool if you can do it all online. And the reason is pretty obvious, right? You can open the hell up to somebody that you've never met. It's a very easy thing to do, especially if you're not looking at one another. Now, with a lot of the friends on the lifeboat, people have made relationships where, we've had examples of people that have traveled halfway across the country to hang out with one another and meet one another. And the initial meeting place was the lifeboat. But try to get 5 people, and we say, have a group of 5. And as opposed to working through things constantly one-on-one with somebody like you would with a sponsor, what we encourage people to do is to come here twice a day, right? Or once a day, or 4 times a week, or whatever you can pull off. However, if you can do 1 hour a day and dedicate that to sobriety, you're going to stay sober. This ain't rocketry. It really isn't. And this is nothing that we invented. We've changed how everything works because we're online, and it seems to make sense to maybe tweak this thing a little bit so that the lifeboat is not your dad's drug meeting, right? But it very much is in a lot of ways exactly like everything else that ever came before us. But by setting people up with a 5, the other thing that we try to do is we try to encourage people to assemble a set of tools, right? To assemble a little toolkit, or a bag of tricks, as it's sometimes called around here. And what we try to do is we try to get you set up so that you have actually planned out each aspect of the recovery, so that the first time something happens that bums you the hell out, you can pretty much go to the handbook and be like, okay, bummed out. Best friend talked about me behind my back. That's page 13, right? I have a game plan for what's going to happen when anything happens to me in my sobriety. And then you go for the bag of tricks. This is about a level 3 kind of problem in sobriety. What I need to do is start journaling, see if this does anything. If it doesn't, right? If whenever that bag of tricks does not work, you start calling the people who are in your 5, and you let the connection take over, because the opposite of addiction is connection. Capiche? So the refractory period, after we do one of these traumatic events, when the refractory period is going on, we're unhappy. Life's not good. We're inside ourselves. We're in our own dome, and we're bummed out. We're reliving the trauma again and again. And what are we doing? Well, we're laying a cable, aren't we? Like in the brain, we're literally stringing a cable from one part of the brain to the other, right? And reinforcing this memory. And the more we sit and the more we relive it, and the more that every single person we see, and as again, the example of the car wreck, every person we see for a week goes, oh man, I heard you got T-boned at that intersection. You're lucky to be alive, right? Thank God. Wow, do you know how close that was? Man, if that car was there 2 seconds earlier, and it's just that cable's getting laid back and forth in the brain. And we are absolutely hammering this unpleasant memory deeper and deeper and deeper into the brain. And as we've talked about this a million times. But the reason that's there is to maybe discourage us from having the same thing happen again. This is a concept that should make sense to people. This is why we don't put our hand on a stove twice. This is why we realize that flame burns, and it only takes one time, right? Nobody has to stick their hand in a flame twice. Why? Because the memory is imprinted and seared on the brain in such a way so that the next time you see that flame, before you even have to think about it, your hand comes back, right? What if the same crap happens with an event? What if the same crap happens with a person? What if something so traumatic happens that feeling of the flame? How about if you feel like that with an automobile? I have a friend I absolutely love, one of my favorite people on planet Earth, one of God's greatest creations, who is terrified to get in an automobile and has been for a long time because of a very, very traumatic event that happened not to this individual, but to someone else. They lost a best friend in a horrific accident, and the refractory period, 6 years later, isn't over. And when something like this happens, when we come out of an event like this, right? And we're into that refractory period of time, it changes your mood. Can we all agree on that? This dramatically changes your mood. We all know what a mood is, right? You get in a bad mood. I'm in the best mood. Man, that dude was in a crap mood. Your mood is how you are feeling right now, right? Or right then, or wherever we're talking about. But the mood is your ability to deal with everybody else and your ability to deal with all of the crap that's going on in your life. What is it doing to your emotional quotient, your EQ? Because this is where all of this crap gets scary. The mood changes, right? We can all agree on this. In the 70s, they had really cool rings that would change it for you. They'd turn color. Mood rings. Anybody? Bueller? Was anybody here? Actually, I know a lot of you were alive in the 70s. I know some of you weren't. There's one or two of you that might not have been alive in the 70s, but the vast majority of you were. But when the mood sticks around too long, right? Now, all of a sudden, it starts to become part of your personality. For real. Have you ever met those people that are just bitter as hell? The first time you say hello to them, they've got frown lines that are permanent. And you go up to them and you meet them and they're like, yeah, how are you? And you're just like, wow, how did I piss this person off without meeting them? This is the first time I've met this person. And it is pretty damn obvious that this person doesn't like me. Well, there are people out there for whom the refractory period lasted so long that there were so many cables laid in the brain, right? That this is no longer just affecting a period of time that we would call mood. Now it's actually affecting something that's lasting so long that this is becoming a hardwired part of your personality, right? Of actually who you are. Refractory periods stick around long enough. And sometimes people will say, you know what? Well, so-and-so has been really depressed since they lost their loved one. And they never seem to bounce back or get over it. And this does happen. This happens with a lot of people. It happens with people who are married for really, really long periods of time. You see this. And then you see people who are married for really long periods of time. And you think, this person's never going to recover. They were never apart. They were together 24/7. In 60 years of marriage, they never spent one night apart. They're closer than any two people I've ever met. And he's not going to make it without her. This will be the end of them. And you see the person like 2 weeks later and they got a spring in their step and they're bouncing back. And you go, how in the name of God does that happen? Why is it that some people are able to get that refractory period so short that it was only a bad mood, right? That it was only a period of, 5 weeks that their mood was jacked and then it ended. How is it that there are people who cope and there are people that don't? Is this something that you're born with? Is this something that you learn? Or is it the luck of the draw? This car wreck was so bad. This person's trauma was so bad that the refractory period is going to last a month. It's going to last a year. Now, make no mistake. There are things that happen to people and the refractory period might take a year. Good Lord, there is some traumatic crap that can happen to the human mind. And there are people in here that know better than anybody. Now, Does this mean that if you don't get over something, right, that you're in the refractory period forever? If you're thinking to yourself right now, I swear to God, I have been in the refractory period from my, from my first divorce for the better part of 30 years. There's a difference between living with trauma and literally not getting over something. There are two different concepts. The refractory period is shorter if you have a good support and if you don't have tons of previous trauma. There's an excellent amount of truth to everything that she just said. And I'm going to start backwards and say, if you don't have tons of previous trauma, because do you know what previous trauma does? It lays the cable that we were just talking about, right? Earlier, when I said that it lays a cable in the brain. It is no longer now just an event that happened. Now, every day, we're reinforcing that event in our mind again and again and again and again. And we're literally taking this trauma and attaching it so that it is affecting our emotional quotient from here on out. What happens if the emotion from the event doesn't go away? Are you following me? If it's a car wreck, what was the emotion? Well, it's terror, it's fear. Well, what happens if that fear doesn't go away? What happens if you say, Liz, we're going to the store, let's get in the car, and Liz goes, I can't do that. And her palms start to sweat, right? And her breathing starts getting really, really fast. And she is literally in a dead panic attack at the idea of getting back in a car. Okay, well, now the refractory period and this accident and this trauma is destroying a person's life. Now we're getting to a point where this person's quality of life is shot because of previous trauma. And as Kathy pointed out, the more trauma that's there, you're not going in and plowing a new road, right? This road's been plowed. All you're doing now is kind of adding on to it. The more trauma we have in our life, the easier it is for the brain to lay another line of trauma cable from one part of the brain to the other. It's almost like a learned behavior for the mind. So the more trauma there is, the more difficult it is to cut down on the part of the refractory period. And by the way, there's no right or wrong to how long somebody mourns a death, takes to get over an accident, any of that, right? Trauma is unique. It's unique to every single person. And if you lose somebody or you're fighting an illness or any of the things that come up in someone's life, you're not going to deal with it the way your best friend deals with it. The refractory period isn't going to be the same for two people if they're friggin' twins. It's just different for every single person. And how do people become part of a five? What they do, CK, is they literally say to anybody in this group, hey, do you also hang out over on the Facebook group page? Excellent. I'm over there as well. Any chance I could direct message you? I'm kind of trying to build my five. And usually people here are pretty fired up to go, absolutely. Let's exchange some info. Well, the guy, good to see you, bud. Thank you for stopping in and saying hi. I really appreciate that. It's like hitting a speed bump at 30 miles an hour, says Seagull Rock Squawk. And it's permanent, right? This can literally do damage that we kick it with for the rest of our lives. And this is where it gets really hairy. If let's say you literally every day you deal with people who are trying to get sober, and you talk to people 365 days a year that are trying to get sober, you start to see patterns, and you start to see that there are people for whom they drink the refractory period away for the day. There are people who are still living in the snapshot of the trauma that the previous trauma that's destroying their life. They're there. They're in it. They're in the midst of it, day in, day out. And they use booze, or they use pills, or they use blow, or whatever it is to turn that off for 4 or 5 hours at a time. And then they do more. And this becomes one of those self-medicating things that happens to a lot of people. Keep in mind, don't just think of this as a hardwired memory, because attached to the hardwire memory is the emotions, the physical. I'm not kidding you. Listen, this is an example. Guy gets up to go to work every single morning for 40 years, right? He lives out in one of the bedroom communities in New York. He lives somewhere in Connecticut, or he lives, out on Long Island or something. But every day he's got to get up and he's got to commute. And what that basically means is he's got an hour and 30-minute bumper to bumper traffic every single day, both directions, but really bad in the morning, right? Just awful. And he does this every single day for 4 decades. Saturday rolls around. He's got the day off, right? How's a good day? Sunday, watches some football. Monday morning, he's supposed to go to work. But they get a snowstorm. And when he goes out in the morning, there's like 2 feet of snow in his driveway. And he's like, well, not going to work today. And he goes back into his kitchen. And do you know what happens? His heart rate starts to speed up, right? His palms start to sweat. He starts going into what feels like a low-level anxiety attack. And he's sitting in the kitchen and goes, this doesn't make any sense. I'm not doing anything. Well, your body thinks you are, right? Your brain thinks it's time to get stressed the hell out in bumper-to-bumper traffic, because you do that 5 days a week, and you've been doing that 5 days a week for as long as I can remember, right? So this is it. Let's get ready. Let's shoot a little adrenaline his way. Let's get that blood pressure going, because he's going to be trading paint with other cars all the way down to the train, right? That's the power of the human mind, right? Sadly, the brain can't see. You understand that the part of your brain that's doing all of the thinking and all of that crap isn't the part of your brain that has anything to do with looking at something. It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? But it's the truth. So there's no communication. Slow down. Count to 10. You're counting to 10 so that your brain goes, well, we're obviously not in deep crap because he's not running. I don't feel the legs running underneath, right? His arms aren't pumping. And most assuredly, nobody getting chased by a bear or about to get shot or someone that thinks that they're going to fall off a cliff, right? They're getting pushed to the edge of a cliff. They don't stop and count to 10 calmly. 1, 2. You think anybody ever getting chased by a wildebeest took the time to take deep breaths and count to 10? No, that is a mind hack to tell your brain, I'm not under attack. Quit sending down adrenaline. We're cool down here, right? Chill out. There's nothing going on. You just think there is, because there is an emotion tied to the memory so tight, right? You're so damn programmed that what? Well, people, you're so damn programmed that what if the mood continues until it becomes personality? Right? We talked about this. This is when you have been in the refractory period from trauma, whatever the trauma is, for 6 months. 6 months turns into a year for 365 days. Your emotional quotient has been pegged on miserable, right? Now it's a cocktail of miserable because you're sad, you're angry, you're all those things. But we'll just call it miserable for the sake of the conversation. You've been stuck on miserable for a damn year. And now it's getting to the point where the trauma is becoming far more removed. But now the miserable has a lot to do with just being miserable. If the refractory period lasts long enough where you're no longer just in a bad mood, right? That's the first month of you just sitting around the house doing this one. You do it long enough and it starts to become your personality. You start to become the person we were talking about earlier that's just bitter, and we all know them. People that are just bitter, or they're scared, right? Or they're angry. They're just one of those people that snaps at everything. Or they're just perpetually sad. You know, those people that are like Eeyore from from Winnie the Pooh. Guys, remember Eeyore? Eeyore, you want to go outside? It'll probably just rain anyhow. Yeah, just the most bummed out donkey on the planet. That's what happens if you live eternally in the refractory period. So all of a sudden now, this is your personality, which means that your go-to setting, you've laid enough cable in the mind that literally now your go-to setting is uncomfortable. And your brain will provide you with the chemicals to make that happen forever if you don't fix it. Forever. Well, how do you fix it? Well, then you're going to go in there and literally start yanking that cable, right? You've got to get back down to the base of this. You've got to get to the trauma that started this. This is why people end up sitting on couches, right? And paying $75 a session because the person on the couch, although probably willing to hand you a tissue, even if you're in the midst of it and you're going through it and you're struggling and you're crying, they're going to ask you questions that are going to continue to take you in a direction that is going to force you to take a good hard look at this trauma. That's really what counseling is, right? It's to try to get to the trauma and make it not traumatic. You understand? Now, this puppy can do the exact same thing for a lot less money. It can. The trick is you actually have to pick up a pen and you actually have to put it to paper. And you actually have to start trying to remember and relive things that you don't want to remember and relive. You don't. But if you don't, then that refractory period that's stuck around long enough to become a bad mood, and that bad mood that's stuck around long enough to start to become your personality, to start to tint who you are, then that's just going to keep getting worse. $75 for a Kleenex box. They're not even going to give you the whole one, Siegel. They're going to recycle that thing. You know, you're probably, if it's a good session, you're going to be good for about a third of a box of Kleenex. That's a damn good session on a couch. Don't kid yourself. A third of a box of Kleenex, you're working through some crap. But that means they can get 3 sessions out of it. And I was told there'd be no math, but I'll bet that's over a couple of $100. I'm guessing. What if you don't know what the trigger is? Okay, well, very often you don't. But let's think of it in terms of instead of calling it a trigger, just because we call a crap load of other things here triggers, let's just call it the event. All right. What was the event that started the refractory process that caused the mood, which then tainted the personality? How do we get there? Well, you get there, Jenny, by trying to figure out exactly when you can remember a change, right? You start thinking to yourself, I was kind of a happy-go-lucky girl. I had a good time in college. Everything was kind of groovy, and I think I really kind of enjoyed life until when? I don't know. I think it was probably about a year and a half ago where everything just kind of started going screwy. All right, well, trust and believe something happened a year and a half ago, right? So let's start backtracking. And I'll tell you something else, people. Like when I start going through things now and things are starting to bum me out, and recently something came up that had me digging through some stuff. But I got journals now that go back to the very, very first day of my sobriety. I've journaled every day, right? I mean, I may have missed some for travel or whatever, but I journal every single day. So if something does come up and I start feeling a bit out of sorts and I'm not sure where something came from, I can literally start going back and looking through stuff. You can start going, all right, last July, things just seemed to start going off the rails. So I just start going back, looking through stuff. What the hell was going on last July? Everything kind of goes in a circle. But here's a good question for you, Jenny. What if you figure it out? What if you say, all right, I know what did this. I know exactly why this happened the way it did. Hold on, people. I think I can mute this. Does that actually mute? Hopefully it did. All right. So What if you can figure out exactly when that event was? What if that is something you can figure out? You go, oh, you know what it was? You know what it was? It was that party. I went to that party, right, at Liz's place, and that guy did this. And from that night, that's when it started. So what happens if you can figure that out? Does that mean you get a get out of jail free pass, right? You get a cookie, and from that point on, you don't have to deal with any of that trauma? No, not so much. But it does at least let you know what it is we need to freaking target, right? If you go, yeah, it's exactly what happened. This happened to me at that party, and that is what precipitated all of this. This person said that, right? And then it got heated and okay, well, if you're working through that, if you're taking your notebook and writing out exactly what happened, your notebook is going to go, this is the part that bummed you out, right? Like your notebook will communicate with you. Your journal will absolutely talk to you. And if you don't believe that, then you don't journal. Trust me when I tell you, this thing will tell you what happened. And it'll tell you why it's bumming you out. And it'll do it better than the person on the couch. And if you find yourself stuck, I'm not even being funny, people. You think this is a punchline because it sounds like a punchline, but I'm dead friggin' serious. When you're writing in your journal and you're working through something and you're actually peeling that onion back, right? Peeling that onion back. Feel it and heal it. I love it. Exactly. There's a really good chance you didn't deal with the emotions of the event, which is why it became trauma. How do you avoid trauma in the first place? Okay, let's back up to the event, right? Let's back up to the event. So the event happens. We deal with it in the moment. We don't push it off. This is something that happens constantly. Somebody passes away. A loved one passes away. And let's say the loved one's got 5 kids. One of those kids has to step up kind of to take control of everything, because now there's 3 siblings that are flying in for the funeral, and Aunt what's her name is coming, and I got to figure out a place for her to stay. And then I got to pick 2 different people up at the airport. One's coming in, and for the duration of that funeral and that week, that sibling doesn't have to deal with the death of dad or the death of mom. They're not dealing with it at all. No, they're the cruise director. Right? They're Julie McCoy from The Love Boat. They're taking care of everything that needs to get done. They're renting cars. They're booking hotel rooms. They're picking people up at the airport. They're making sure that the suit that dad's getting buried in gets to the funeral home. And they booked all that funeral home crap too. And then they had to get a death certificate because all of the stuff that's coming up with that. And the family does want an obituary, so this person sits down, and for that entire 2 weeks, man, they think I'm bulletproof. Look how beautifully I'm dealing with this, right? Everybody around me is crying. They're falling apart. Look at me. I'm the rock. And then it's over and everybody leaves. And you've taken that trauma and you've put it away for a couple of weeks. Now, one of a couple of things is going to happen. That person is going to sit down right then and they're going to just let the gates bust open. And they're going to let all of that emotion bleed out, and they're going to start the healing process. Or they're going to realize that, if I keep staying busy the same way I did for the last 14 days, I'm not going to have to deal with Pops at all. And they just keep doing it. And it becomes a lifestyle. And that refractory crap becomes a mood. And what's the mood? Well, he's a workaholic. That dude never stops. Right? Just an absolute workaholic. You cannot get him off the task at hand because this is how he copes with life, right? This becomes a personality trait. And this happens constantly. This happens every day. So let's go back, start to the beginning of that exact same scenario, right? When dad passes away, and that one sibling needs to step up and handle exactly what they're handling. So they get all of the airlines booked and they do all that stuff. And when their siblings come in, they pick them all up. Well, that person finds one sibling, maybe 2, right? What did I say? They had 5. So they pick a couple out of the 4. Maybe they even get all of them, but they sit down and they say, I'm hurting. I'm hurting. I can't believe he's gone. Just thought he'd be here forever. He was my Superman, and the person just lets it out. You understand that if emotions are allowed to see the sun, right? They don't cut and kill brain matter the same way that they do if you keep them in the dark. When things are kept in the dark, bad stuff happens. When stuff is brought into the light, beautiful freaking things happen. Everybody with me on this? So how do we avoid it? We don't bury it in the back of your head. Lemmy, that's heavy. That's really, really heavy stuff. Lemmy says, I was the one that found my dad's body. Had to handle his funeral, my mom's funeral, my brother's funeral. Lemmy, have you ever sat down and talked to somebody and just literally just talked about that, what that felt like, what that did to you? If you didn't, call somebody in your 5. I know one of them that would sit and listen to that entire thing. I know him really well. Let me, it's awful. But right now, as you're listening to this video, you have got to be thinking to yourself, have I worked through all of those? Because if you haven't, brother, it is going to be one of the see, Lenny, you really need to book an appointment with somebody in your 5 and just talk about this. Cry your ass off. Do whatever you got to do. There's nobody here that's going to judge anybody for anything emotional. Nobody here is ever going to bum out if you're showing emotion, right? This is the emotion boat. This is why we're here. This is why we're here, right? So that we can bleed amongst each other, so that we do not have to bleed among a world that does not care for us. I mean, that's the lifeboat. That's it, right? Here we will bleed where no one will judge us, so that we do not have to bleed in public where everybody will. Look at this here. Everybody see that? Welcome to the lifeboat. V, I love you. Joe83 says, Lemmy, I'm sorry for your loss. And you know what, Lemmy? He's not just typing that. He's not. I promise you. He's feeling that. We all are. Honestly, I'm so sorry, Lemmy. I can't wrap my brain around what you pulled off. I'm not kidding. I could not have done that. There's no way I could have done that. I couldn't have done one of them. I'm not the sibling in the 5 that can pull that off. I'm not. If they need somebody to get up and do a eulogy, I'm probably going to be the person that's asked to get up and say something about the person. But all that organization and all that, no, see, I go a different route. I would have melted down before that. I am very good at melting down. I'm very good at letting all of it out and letting people see it. I really am. I'm not so good at putting it all back together afterwards. When the refractory time is over, and that's a whole other show, people. If you were hoping I was going to tell you how to pull all this back together, it is definitely a full show, all its own. I see the initials QG. Did Quiet Girl show up? I haven't seen her. Did I miss her? I see I don't know. Nope, no judgment. We have all been in dark places for different reasons. Well said, V. Well said, right? And we have watched we've watched a lot of people come and go. V, this is worth doing. Anybody, one of the craziest things for me is if I ever go back through videos, and I do because I've done 1,000 of them, right? So you go back and you go, is there a subject I haven't done in a while? And you just start flipping through stuff. And I swear to you, I did this for like a minute and a half the other day, just scrolling down through all of the videos. But you get in there and you look through some of the live chats, from some of the early live feeds, and there are people in there that you won't see any of their names here. They're all gone, and they're not gone because they decided to hate us. They're not gone because of any of that kind of stuff. These are people that are gone because they went back to the life, or they got clean enough that that this is a maintenance thing, and they show up about once every 6 or 7 months. But it's amazing because I don't care what video you pick or how long ago it was, and I don't care who it is that's in the comment section. There's never anybody in there judging anybody. Different cast of characters, different names, with exceptions. Charlie's you're going to see Charlie in every single one of them. You're going to see V in every single one of them. There's people you're going to see in all of them. But the other cast of characters kind of come and go, but you will never see judgment in any of them. Seriously, 1,000 videos. Go find someplace where someone was judging somebody. And if you find it, you're going to find a whole bunch of people that were not very happy about it and made that real clear. People who judge people here tend to disappear very quickly. They end up in the land of the band. Quiet girl, there she is. Still at the shore, going home today. You know what? Quiet girl's been. This is a working vacation, so to speak. Quiet girl has been off hunting down people that need the lifeboat. She hasn't been on vacation. She's been searching out people in need of healing, and telling them about the lifeboat. That's what she's been doing. This has not been a vacation. We love you, Quiet Girl. Great interview, by the way, and a joy to do. That was an interview that, sometimes interviews take a lot of work, and that's not a bad thing. It really isn't. But sometimes they take no effort at all, and that can be a lot of fun. Joe83 says, Tommy, I'm going on 2 years clean and sober on the 23rd of this month. How good is that? You know what? It's probably your first go around, Joe. But we are busting out the official. This is official because I said so. This is the official Lifeboat participation trophy given out anytime somebody does something that gives me that shot of dopamine that I do this for. Every time somebody says something that literally gives me a cocktail of feel-good brain chemicals that just makes me want to smile, we bust out the official Lifeboat participation trophy, which I believe was originally sponsored by Arizona Raven. I believe it was her idea to originally bust out the participation trophy. If I'm wrong on that, one of the historians of the boat can clear me up, but I'm pretty sure that's who originally had asked for the participation trophy was Arizona Raven. This is yours, Joe. How damn good is 2 years, man? People, now you're into the, when you start counting in years, that's when the pressure's on. You know that, right, Joe? And I don't mean pressure that you're going to screw up, because I think that by year 2, honestly, if you're working a program, by year 2, you're solid, right? You are. You're in there, but you're too solid. And what I mean by that is, man, there's no coasting. Once you got a couple of years under your belt, once you are there, Joe, and you feel like you are pretty in control of your sobriety, well, then you're at base camp for real now, right? Now we know that that's back there, right? That part of life is back there. That was the boozing and the drugging part. So now you got to start working on making the new and improved Joe, right? Joe 2.0, the greatest version of you that there has ever been. The best version of you, how you were designed to be, right? That's what this ride is all about in the long run, right? It is not about stopping chemicals. It's about living the best life that you were designed to live, right? When you came into this world and you came online and took a breath and you had all the friggin' potential in the entire world, and there was nothing you couldn't do until the earth beat you up. And you had so many of those refractory moments, right? That when I talk about our brain wanting the status quo, do you understand how insidious this becomes now? Think about it, right? Something happens to you when you are 6 years old that you carry with you subconsciously for the rest of your life. For the rest of your life. Things that happened to us when we were 6 or 8 or 18 or 22, they get hardwired into that, to the hard drive of our brain, and they go nowhere until we force them out. Until we deal with the crap that has made us who we are, then we're not getting any better. If ever you are having problems, if you people are not on the Facebook group page for the lifeboat, it's the easiest way for people to link up. If you're not there, but two of you want numbers exchanged or something like that, please don't put them in the comment section. What you can do is you can email the boat, and I'll do the swap for you. Just email the lifeboat, and I'll get the numbers to the two of you. It's good. It's one of the reasons we do have the whole setup with Facebook and with Messenger, is so that you guys can link up without my assistance. I don't mind helping you. I really don't. It's only on days when there's 10 of them or 15 of them, and I'm trying to put together a show and fix a watch, and I start yelling about you people, how much I can't stand you. Man, I hate these people. Needy. I'm kidding. I don't do that you know of. No, I very rarely, I really do love what I do. You know what I mean? I'm not doing this to get rich, which is a good thing, because it wouldn't work very well. But I'm having a really good time, and I'm getting rich in other ways that are that really are the top of the heap. It's funny, the things you don't know until you know, right? If I knew then what I know now, right, I'd be rich. One of the times that I made a crap load of money, I would have held on to some of it. You know what? Honestly, this is the first time that I can remember where I'm where I want to be. I'm comfortable as hell in life, and things are good. I love my new home. I love where I live. It's taken a really long time, right? I mean, it has 52 years. It's taken 52 years to get to the point where I feel like I'm in a pretty good state of zen. I mean, my health is not, where it should be, but there's always going to be something. But I mean, like, from the left ear to the right ear, in that area in between, I'm more content in there than I've ever been. And at my age, I think that's pretty good. I'm looking at an old class picture, and I'm wondering how my mom owned a hair salon. Lemmy, you can also blame that on the decade, though, right? Don't judge your 1980s haircut by 2020 standards, right? Man, show those mullet photos with pride. I'm trying to remember who sent me just recently. I got a photo sent to me from somebody on the crew, and they're a fairly new crew member because I got it about a month ago. Damn, I can't remember who it is. Somebody sent me a mullet picture, and it is, I mean, like Billy Ray Cyrus. Like, this dude was rocking the party on top, or business on top, party in the rear. It was vicious. Let's see. What did I miss? That's really funny, Lemmy. You're gonna post that, right? You're gonna go over and post that on Facebook so that we can all get a laugh. Can you do that in the group page? Late 1970s haircut, and I was wearing a Steelers jersey. You know what? I've got pictures like that from the 70s, except I wasn't wearing Steelers jerseys. But I got a bunch of them where I'm wearing football jerseys and bad haircuts. That was a rough time for style. The 70s and the 80s were pretty tough. We're pretty tough on style cues. I love them both, though. Monk says, Lemmy, a roofer's roof always leaks. Ah, that's a real. That is a really that's funny as hell, but it's the truth, right? Which is scary because think of the chair I'm sitting in. Makes you wonder. You know what? I'm glad that you said this out loud, Snotface. Everybody see that? For those of you who are new to the boat, Snotface has her husband is a service member, one of our heroes. So when he's out of town and she's alone, she says, "I've only been by myself for 10 days, and people keep asking how I'm doing. While I appreciate the support, I wish it would stop because it's just too soon and it feels like I'm being rushed." I get it, Snotface. And you know something? The fact that you say that out loud, people pay attention, right? This is how to not let something become an issue 101. This is how to not let something that could be annoying enough to actually need a refractory period. And that refractory period will cause a mood issue for the amount of time that it takes. Best is to come here and do just what Snotface is doing right now. Come here and let people know about it. Number one, you got it out. It's no longer trapped in you, right? So it's not going to turn into trauma. The other way we avoid trauma is with a damn journal, right? Go to bed with something you haven't resolved, and there's a really good chance it's going to turn into something bad. Don't go to bed with unresolved crap in your head. Put it in a book, right? Ink, lead, graphite, whatever works for you, put it in a book. Type it into your journal, your memoirs, your letters, right? Whatever you're doing, but get it done. And then when you get up in the morning, get rid of everything that didn't get taken care of while you were asleep. You know what I'm saying? We journal before we go to bed. We journal as soon as we get up in the morning. That is what we do. Why do we do it? To avoid trauma down the road. We are trying to avoid adding any new trauma to the animal that is you, right? Then at the same time, we're gonna go back, and anything that is not resolved, well, then we need to resolve that. Lemmy, you need to get with somebody. I'm not farting around. You know what I mean? I can't order you to do a damn thing, but you know right now, after listening to this show, you know that you really need to work through that stuff. And ain't nobody here going to judge you, brother, right? Get together with somebody on the boat and cry your ass off for a couple hours, right? Talk through this stuff and deal with the emotions that you didn't get a chance to because you had to carry the weight of a family. It needs to happen, my brother. It really does. It needs to happen. So please, there's a lot of people here that care really deeply about you. You know how I know that? Because they send me emails and they say things like, "I'm worried about him," or "Please pray for him. You know, it's on my heart. Could you pray for this cat?" There's a lot of people here that care really deeply for you, Lemmy, and I'm one of them. For real. From the first time that you wandered onto the boat, you know. And I saw Full of Hope earlier, but I haven't seen her in a second. Because you know something? I was having a conversation once with Full of Hope, and we were talking about what time when she came onto the boat. And I'll tell you something. I was looking at some videos. It was yesterday from way back in the early days of the boat. And Full of Hope, you are way off. You have been on the lifeboat a lot longer than you thought you have. If you're hearing the sound of my voice, you've been on the boat a lot longer than our previous discussion. I found stuff that was very close to in the ballpark of 2 years old. For real. Slightly under that. So you've been around on this boat a really long time. That's why I wish YouTube had Messenger, Tommy. You know what? How good a concept would that be? For real. If YouTube had Messenger, that would really be an excellent addition. Or if you could just private message people, right? How about if just anybody that was a member of one channel could do it, so that you didn't have everybody all over the place doing stuff. But I'm sorry. Scoob, you have a good day too. Quiet girl, have a good day. To everybody else here, right? To everybody else here. That brings us to the top of the hour. Squirrel is hunting rodents in the garage. She just refused to come and go to work this morning, but I'm sure that we'll see her later in the day. I am going to be doing the lifeboat again about 11 hours from right now. I am doing the night show tonight, so I will see all of you back here at 5 o'clock, where at the lifeboat, we are always live on the 5s. This has been a lot of fun this morning, people. Thank you so much for sharing your morning with me. I want you to go out. Kath, don't hold out. Don't hold out. If you've got vicious mullet pictures, tell you what, you pick out the best mullet picture you got, and then I'll send you one that's just as good. Because I have a mullet picture of me from way back in the day. And before any of you ask, you're gonna have to trade mullet shots. I don't just send out mullet shots, especially mullet shots of me and Johnny, because I got one of me and my brother that's just classic. I mean, it really, you want to talk 1980s perfect mullet. If I showed you the picture, you'd have a heart attack. It is the penultimate 1980s mullet shot. The outfits, everything, and it's perfect. But all right, V, have a great day. And you see this, everybody? Look. Okay, I'll see everybody later. Love you, all of you. Anyone needs me? I'm on Facebook. My name is Virtuous Lynn Mears, and you may add me. Vitrice. You're just V. I've read that so many times, and I swear to you, I don't even process it. You know what I mean? It's just V. It will always be V to me. All right, Balake, have a great day. We will see all of you. Hey, you know what? There is a rumor, though. There is a rumor that I might just be on someone else's channel a little later. It's just a rumor, but I may be making a visit to somebody else's channel. Don't know who. All right, people. I'm Tommy. We'll see you tonight. All right. God bless.